Kobe, does Wayne Taylor Racing Andretti have the best driver lineup, and what else stands out to you from the LMP2 side of the grid?
And this basically proves my point about Andretti from the last segment. Let's see, look at the driver, look at the drivers that they put together. I know everyone was very excited to see Alex Albon in this car, but when you have Brendan Hartley, Marcus Ericsson, Jensen Button, all ex Formula One drivers driving under the Andretti brand, I think that definitely says something, because if Andretti was just a group of hillbillies, as Michael Andretti said, do you think these drivers would want to drive for Andretti? Yeah, so I think Andretti definitely has a really great driver lineup here. I'm not sure whether the 10 or the 40 is going to be the favorite to win the Rolex 24, but I think the team in general certainly has to be one of the early favorites to win the Rolex 24 in January. But of course, we have to see how the balance of performance stuff goes, because that's how we do things in sports car racing. Everything's going to come down to seeing which manufacturer is able to get the most favorable balance of performance. I think looking at the entire field here for the Rolex 24 in the prototype category, seeing a lot of great driver lineups, and there's some things we talked about in the past, like Tom Blomqvist is going to be switching over to IndyCar, going to be in the Enduros this year with Action Express Race, and then the number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac. And looking at LMP2, really excited what we're going to be able to see there from this year. I think it's going to be one of the most competitive seasons we've seen in LMP2. I think looking at the driver lineup, that's going to be most intriguing to me is probably that number 11 from TDS Racing, Stephen Thomas, Mikkel Jensen, and Hunter Malcaray, who's going to be leaving Indy next and switching over to sports car racing as he plans a future career in the NTT IndyCar Series. And then AO Racing with PJ Haya and Paul-Loup Chatin. I think that's going to be very interesting. Maybe we'll even see a Rexy version of an LMP2 car. We'd really like to see that, because PJ Haya, his kids were able to design the Rexy Porsche. I know a lot of fans really like that. Raleigh Motorsports stepping up to LMP2 as well, such as and Sean Creech's United Auto Sports going to be here for the full season. I think it's going to be a really great year in the LMP2 category.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Wayne Taylor last week, and we were disappointed about Alex Albon. But when you can bring in an Indy 500 winner and a Formula One world champion, it's not bad, is it? And Jensen Button's been plenty in the news today with other things that are going on platforms of your choice with documentaries. But big news for Jordan Taylor was part of that NASCAR program, wasn't he, at Le Mans last year, of course, which Jensen drove. Now they're going to be teamed together at the Rolex 24. That's going to be a car to watch. Be interesting to see how Marcus goes, of course, just jumping into Andretti this year for IndyCar, so he'll be getting used to working with some of the team guys. There'll probably be some of the IndyCar guys transferring over to those cars for the 24 hours especially, obviously not for the full season, but maybe for the Rolex. So that DPI category is GTP, going back in time, GTP category is looking solid, and there's some great driver lineups in there. I'm really looking forward to what the TBAs turn out to be in LMP2, because there's plenty on that list. You would think probably at Tower, Scott McLaughlin may get another run in the number 8 car. Did very good job for them last season in the appearances that he made at the Rolex and at Petit Le Mans. But I'm my probably early favourite, and we're 10, 11 weeks out from the race, still probably plenty of time for things to change. But my early favourite looking at that is probably United Autosport with their 2 cars coming across from the World Endurance Championship, as are Inter Europol as well. So with no LMP2 in WEC next season, these guys have got to find somewhere to race, and they've landed with one of the endurance classics of the year to start off. It's going to be a great year in LMP2 all throughout the season next year in IMSA.
Matt, which GT driver lineup surprised you the most?
So, I don't know about surprised. There's some good ones in there. Good to see Hinch and Rossi back together again in the FAF Porsche. That's going to be a cool looking lineup. One note to mention on that table is the Iron Lynx car in GTD Pro will disappear after Daytona, because those guys will be jumping into the prototype. Bortolotti, Pepper, Caldarelli and Frank Pereira, or at least 3 of those 4 will jump into the prototype, because the prototype is coming for Lamborghini at Sebring. It's not going to be ready in time for Daytona, but it will be here for Sebring. Iron Dames, as you mentioned, we talked about them. They were the hottest hot of all hots on my Hots and Knots last week for winning that WEC race. They'll be strong. I mean, as we've seen for the last, 10, 12 years at Daytona, it always comes down to the final hour and who's still standing. Lexus were tremendously strong throughout the season, and we won the championship with Barnicoat and Hawksworth. Corvette will be strong again. Their driver lineups are excellent. Kind of weird to see Danny Juncadella not in a Mercedes, as it will be wherever Raffaele Marciello lands after his final Mercedes run out at Macau this weekend. Plenty of TBAs still to be filled on that list. Who will go into that Proton Mustang in GTD will be interesting, because that car, if it's fast, will be strong against the two factory cars, the 64 and the 65 in the Pro category. Can't wait for the season to start, because there are so many cars on that entry list and in the two prototype categories that we looked at before that can win the race at the Rolex and all throughout the season. Going to be an absolutely fascinating year in the IMSA paddock next season.
Yeah, definitely. I think the IMSA season in 2024 is going to be just as spectacular as the last season was, and I'm really looking forward to the GTD Pro entry list. I think it's gonna be a lot more competitive than we've seen the last couple of years. I think a lot of people expected a lot more of GT Pro ever since we left the GTLM platform, but I really haven't had a lot of interest in it. But I think that we're starting to turn a corner, and we're finally getting to a point where that class is going to be just as healthy as the GTD class. I think it's going to be fun to see which driver lineups are going to be able to execute the best throughout the entire season. And as for the Rolex 24, I think it's going to be very interesting seeing the Paul Miller Racing BMW, jump up to the pro class. I mean, a lot of the times Brian Sellers and Madison Snow, they were ahead of the GTD Pro cars when they were in the GTD class. So they were basically already competing with the all pro driver lineup. So I think they could definitely make some noise. And yeah, the Corvettes, obviously their lineups are obviously going to be strong. I know it's going to be a little different this year, that they're not the Corvette Racing factory team anymore, but it's a factory supported effort. Yeah, I know it sounds kind of weird, but yeah, there's quite a level of difference. Got Pratt Miller Motorsports as the team, but the Corvette Racing factory is going to be supporting that effort. And IMSA fans are used to seeing the bright yellow 3 and 4, but I totally agree with you, Matt. It's going to be a bit weird to see Danny Juncadella and something beside a Mercedes. And looking at the GTD Pro entry list right here, you see that number 75 Sun Energy 1. I would have expected Danny Juncadella to be in that car instead of one of the Corvettes. And I wonder who's going to be in that seat. Remember, Will Power was supposed to race with Sun Energy 1 last year at the Rolex 24 before some circumstances in his personal life forced him out of that seat. It would be cool to see Will back in there. There's quite a few TBAs, as you mentioned. I wonder who gets that fourth seat with the Iron Dames. Hopefully it's Dorian Penn, because she's really impressed a lot all throughout this year, continues to get better. She was the talk of the town at Petit Le Mans, driving in front of both GT classes. She was the fastest driver, and she was ahead of all GTD Pro and GTD drivers, and a lot of people were very impressed with what she could do. So hopefully that TBA is going to end up seeing her back in that seat. But overall, I think the GT classes look really, really good on paper.